And now the introduction to the paper is that if you want a world which is just like the Rybczynski world, the general takeaway in terms of its qualitative results, what you want is a world where the aggregate demand function in the world slopes downward, which, as you can see, is not necessary in this country and not necessary when you put it together with the other country. So simple, computed examples are possible where what happens when you increase the amount of labor in the home country is that it produces even less of the commodity that is that labor is particularly good at producing, and it produces less at it because there are big price effects. It's also the case that when that happens, and that's the violation of what Rybczynski has as the only result in the single country case, when that happens, it's in fact the case that country one will necessarily suffer. So you have a theorem that says here are some nice situations, they don't involve any kind of pathology, you don't need the Leontief preferences, just do something close enough to Leontief. And it will be the case that when a country experiences an increase in the amount of endowment of the commodity that's favorable for producing X, it might decrease the amount of X that it produces, and its welfare will in fact fall. So this is a lot like the earlier examples, which are exercises regarding what happens when you make transfers. And all of this can happen with unique equilibrium. Now, I wish it was the case that this was as spare and clean and elegant a little model as the first one that I showed you. It's in fact exactly what it has to be to do the things that you want to do. I don't think you can take away any things and still have it. And when you go from the case of a single country and you do the Rybczynski work of what happens when you increase a factor, you get some definite results, you learn some things, you get some welfare results. Those do badly in general if you take this to the simplest kind of general equilibrium. It's a little bit like anything goes taken to a different kind of general equilibrium. And it's not that anything goes, it's really just that a lot goes. I had, I think, one other thing to say. So the conclusion is simply great belief in taking simple models where there is a possibility of testing how different things are when you look at the case of essentially one agent versus the case of many agents, and systematically looking at those kinds of differences. For this particular problem, I should add that one can prove that for the standard Rybczynski case, where the preferences are the same, then you have perfect aggregation. The entire world acts like a single agent. When that happens, you have downward sloping demand in the aggregate. If you have an economy where people have different, if you have an economy where people have different preferences, but they hold the same endowment of resources, of capital and labor, again you have perfect aggregation. And it looks like an economy with just one agent. The real difference, it would seem to be, between cases that look like the one agent case, and this isn't entirely rigorously true, but it's close, and cases which are very different, or whether you have in the aggregate this fact about demand. So, pardon my voice. It was a pleasure to speak with you. I'd be happy to take questions if you want to do that.
Questions?
Make it so unpleasant at the end with this kind of stuff that it's hard to ask questions. So,
Any comments?
so who's taking basic micro and using Muscalet, Winston, and Green? Put your hand up high.
Everyone has.
Okay. No, put your hand up high. I'm not going to call on you, I promise. Okay. Well, it's half.
They are growing.
Okay, okay. So that's the right background. If you know that, it's actually a rather nice exercise to sort of think through what would happen in general equilibrium when you do the same Rybczynski things. Yes.
What's the relation between
Yes, yes. So this, yeah, yeah. So this will be a world where there's a unique equilibrium. So in the world of total excess demands, there's perfectly nice an excess demand which slopes just the usual way and exhibits gross substitutes. This is really a statement not about the aggregate excess demand, but a statement about a particular kind of demand function. And it's the demand function that you get when you put income so that it's being generated by the holdings of initial endowments. Of course, to get the entire aggregate excess demand, you have to add what's happening on the supply side. What's happening on the supply side is just so powerfully giving you a friendly slope for gross substitutes that the entire thing becomes a case of gross substitutes. So it doesn't seem to fit perfectly with usual kinds of conditions. Yet we also know a great deal about when these kinds of, these are things you carry around in your head, that it really is, these are facts about elasticity of substitution, which makes these kinds of demand functions slope what we might call the wrong way. But it's not at all pathological. I don't know whether it's empirically what one sees, I must say. I have absolutely no idea. Any other questions? I'm grateful that you came. I hope you learned something, and it's really always a great delight to be here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Sonnenschein. I hope you get better soon. And now we have a drink in the other room. Please, you can stay and have a drink there. Thank you very much again.
Thank you.
Wow, what a cute introduction. I didn't know any of these nice examples.